sir. My name is Nidhi Sinapur. So my topic is all about historical research and libraries and archives. In Unit 1, we learned about how to work of a historian relies heavily on sources. While historiography is preoccupied with the writing of history, the claims, arguments, and assertions of historians cannot just be created out of thin air. They must use evidence to prove that their interpretation is sound and accurate. The practice is true not only for history but also for other fields, be it natural sciences, social sciences and humanities, or engineering. There is always an attention to evidence-based assertions, which forms the conditions of any inquiry. But where do historians find resources? And if you, a student of history, were to write historical essays or do historical research, where do you go and what do you do? This lesson is a quick guide on traditional and new repositories of historical sources. We will be covering three in particular: libraries, archives, and the internet. So it means that historians rely heavily on sources for their work, including history, natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, and engineering. They use evidence to prove their interpretations are sound and accurate. This lesson provides a guide on traditional and new repositories of historical sources, including libraries, archives, and the internet of historians and students to find and use their sources. The next topic is all about libraries and archives. The library is traditionally the first place a student goes to whenever they need to do research, which makes sense. It is a place where books, articles, newspapers, theses and dissertations, multimedia collections, and other kinds of potential sources are stored. Aside from its holdings, libraries are also staffed by professional librarians who will be more than willing to help students locate particular sources for any kind of study. Libraries are also places for quiet study and concentration, particularly a one-stop shop for everything a student will need academically and more. However, university libraries tend to vary in terms of what it collects and holds. So visiting libraries outside your own might be helpful. The key to unlocking the potential materials a library has for your research is by going through its catalog. Nowadays, libraries have forgone the tedious and archaic card cataloging systems and have been using the digital version to catalog their holdings, called the Online Public Access Catalog. Sometimes, simply the library catalog. In this system, instead of going through each entry of physical index cards, a simple search will yield the holdings of the library related to your topic. Searching by subject will give you a list of sources, primary and secondary, to aid you in creating a preliminary bibliography that you may later on access physically in the holdings of the library. A problem that could arise is when the search yields too many results. Sifting through this, we need a more refined search string using from specific keywords to limit the result. For example, Philippine history as a search string would result in hundreds, even thousands of materials. Limit it to particular keywords that focus on your topic, such as the Philippine Revolution, Emilio Aguinaldo, Declaration of Independence, and other well-defined strings. The catalog lists down all kinds of materials available based on the subject used in the search. This could be books, journals, maps, and other articles that fit your inquiry. Do not limit yourself to use books and other published materials when you may be able to utilize other forms of sources. Some that are too old to be handled physically may also be available in digital form of microfilm. The National Library of the Philippines in Ermita, Manila provides a rich treasure trove of materials for the student researcher interested in Philippine history, especially in its Filipiniana section. It has available Rizaliana collection, several sets of Pierre and Robertson's The Philippine Islands, 1493 to 1898, rare Filipiniana books, Philippine presidential papers, and other materials that are accessible to the public, especially to students. Research in archives may be a lot more complicated and too advanced, but will provide you with many sources that are not available in the usual libraries. The National Archive of the Philippines, also in Manila, is an agency of the government that is mandated to collect, store, preserve, and make available records of the government and other primary sources about the history and development of the Philippines. It means that the text underscores the critical role that libraries and archives play in historical research. It emphasizes the need for students to familiarize themselves with both traditional and digital cataloging systems to effectively locate and utilize various sources. The mentions of specialized collections in national libraries and archives illustrates the value of these institutions in providing access to unique historical materials. Another is most of the materials here, especially for the years of Spanish colonialism, are in their original language and may not be accessible to college students. Professional history researchers spend years of studying the Spanish language and bibliography to gain useful knowledge out of archival materials. However, other materials may be helpful, and it will not hurt to ask assistance from the staff in the archives. The libraries in the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City have holdings that could also be useful in research. The collections in the main library in Gonzales Hall are rich in resources, especially the Filipiniana section, serials, theses, and dissertations. Other university libraries are also accessible to the public. The Ateneo de Manila University in Quezon City holds the American Historical Collection, a rich source of the American period in the Philippines. The University of Santo Tomas in España, Manila also has collections from the 16th century since it is the oldest Catholic university in that country and is a historic site itself. Private libraries and institutions also have archives that may be used for research. The Family History Center of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it is a generous resource of research on genealogies. The Chimpanzee Memorial Library, Casa Angelo King Heritage Center offers resources of Chinese and Chinese Filipinos in the Philippines and Southeast Asia. The Arsinan archives in Manila have immense church data sources. Your city or town may have its local archives, museum, or public library where you may access primary sources and other materials for your research. So it means that the text illustrates the diversity of resources available for historical research in the Philippines, encompassing university libraries, private collections, and local institutions. It emphasized the importance of language proficiency and specialized knowledge when engaging with historical texts, particularly those from earlier periods. The variety of sources available from academic libraries to private archives highlights the importance of being resources and seeking assistance when needed in order to access a wide range of historical materials.
The Internet as a valuable resource for research must be used responsibly. Plagiarism, the act of appropriating others' ideas, is a resource offense. Treat online information like any other source and use critical thinking skills to analyze it. Knowing how to search effectively is crucial. Refine your research terms to get better results. Google Scholar is a good place to find scholarly articles, and the Google Books offers reviews of scanned books. Wikipedia is a great starting point but should not be used as a primary source. Instead, use its citations to locate reliable source. Project Gutenberg and the Internet Archive offer free digital copies of public domain works. The Philippine government website and the official gazette contain historical materials, particularly on laws and government issues. The National Library of the Philippines and the university libraries also have digital collections. Always cite your source properly and remember that online materials can be updated. While the internet is a vast resource, be careful about the links you click and prioritize legitimate websites for reliable information.
Avoiding plagiarism. Plagiarism is defined as the act of stealing and presenting someone else's idea or words as one's own whether intentional or unintentional. It is considered an ethical issue and a form of left educational institutions have strict rules against plagiarism and students can face serious consequences including failing marks or expulsion if caught. To avoid plagiarism, always cite your sources when using ideas that are not your own. If you quote someone directly, use quotation mark and provide a citation. Alternatively, you can paraphrase the original idea in your own words, but you must still credit the source. This applies to information gathered from any medium including libraries and the internet. The key takeaway is to acknowledge the original source of any idea or information that is not your own.
This topic is about the life history and biography and life history. Life history is a crucial yet often overlooked subdiscipline of history that emphasizes the importance of individuals in shaping broader societal narratives. While exceptional figures have made significant contribution to history, it is essential to recognize that ordinary individuals also play vital roles and should see themselves as part of a larger historical context. This connection has enhanced interest in history, as people realize their lives intersect with national and community histories. Creating a life history requires understanding various factors that influence an individual's life. As individuals are shaped by their social context, biographies, which narrate the lives of individuals, often focus on those who have made notable contribution to society. However, greatness is not solely a product of individuals' merit. It is also influenced by societal conditions and acceptance. Historical examples, such as the lives of artists during the Renaissance, Vincent van Gogh, illustrate how societal readiness can determine an individual's recognition and success. Biographies serves as microcosms of broader historical narratives, making them essential text for understanding particular periods, such as Agoncillo, Revolt of the Masses, and Pimentel's an underground tale, which highlights significant historical events through individuals' experiences. While biographies typically focus on influential figures, they require rigorous methodology to ensure accuracy. Biographers must collaborate sources and consider potential biases from informats close to the subject. Without careful scrutiny, biographies risk becoming platforms for self-arrangement of historical revisionism. Students engaging with biographies should approach them critically, discerning fact of subjective opinion and being mindful of the author's intents. By doing so, they can appreciate the interplay between individuals' lives and the broader historical context, becoming informed consumers of historical narrative. Writing life histories. As mentioned previously, life histories and biographies should not exclusively be written for people who have been influential at some points in their lives. Having the chance to write about oneself in historical terms would make us appreciate how history on a larger scale is related to one's individual life history. In simplest terms, autobiographies are biographies of a person written by oneself. Of course, in a lot of instances, autobiographies can be written by someone else and carry the person's byline. Meanwhile, can be simply referred to as family history. It is a practice of tracing one's through various means, like interviews, going through historical records, or even through genetic testing. Both are genres of history that take tiny units of social as subjects. Despite the relatively small subjects of these historical works, the use of historical methodology remains essential. As in writing another person's biography, writing one's life history and family history also warrants proper historical research. Even if we feel that we know ourselves the most, writing an autobiography requires specific knowledge and information that we may not personally know. Human memory, after all, is fallible. Pouring through primary resources and documents help write the autobiography. These sources may include your birth certificate, church records, your parents' marriage license, birth certificate of your siblings and parents, school records, and even photographs. Writing your life history entails going beyond your own life. As mentioned previously, individuals are shaped by their context, by institutions, and by other people. Those writing an autobiography should also include writing about people that have been influential to you. It should have characterizations of the place where you spend different parts of your life, lives in. Certain institution you have been part of, you spend of uncertain traditions, cultures, and norms that shape your outlook, philosophy, and sense of morality, like religion, education, and media. Aside from institutional and geographic contexts, an individual writing an autobiography and life history is also enriched by locating one's life in more significant historical events and periods. For example, they belong to what particular historical period. How did certain historical events affect their life? For instance, it might be interesting to look at how a specific historical period or event affected their family. Did they have grandparents who fought as guerrilla during the migrate to other parts of the country because of a natural calamity like the typhoon Yolanda or Mount Pinatubo eruptions? In terms of source, the most useful and accessible source would be oral accounts that are acquired through interviews. These accounts can be supplemented by written sources and documents mentioned previously. Such materials may be in the care of the family, but they can also be found in other repositories like parishes and other churches that Church of the Latter-day Saints mentioned in the previous lesson. Kits of photographs, newspaper clippings, family home and videos, and other non-written sources are also useful in constructing these microhistories. Biographies are life histories, narrate the life and times of an individual. Biographies are also useful texts in learning the history of particular time and place and society and context shape individuals. Writing the reading biographies should be done with the same rigor and critical thinking employed in reading and writing other kinds of historical texts. Writing one's life history or autobiography and genealogy or family history is a productive exercise that will enable people to learn more about themselves. Local and oral history. For most of us, studying history means looking back at the past at grand scale. The rise and fall of civilization, societal change and progress across time, and national or regional histories. However, we need to appreciate the history's big picture is informed by individuals, communities, and locales that were shaped and are being shaped by the same historical forces. Thus, we must appreciate local history. The wealth of details about our towns, cities, and political, social, economic, cultural, and environmental forces that shape them through time. Local history allow us to move history closer to our own identities, and surely three are exciting and surprising details about our communities waiting to be discovered. Local history is a microcosm of national history, a representative of broad patterns in a much more localized scale. Spanish colonization gave birth to colonial cities and towns, yet we can see how local details inform this colonial order. The town in Laguna was named as such because of the numerous hot bonios or baths, which was also connected to its old name, mainit, and explain why even the water comes out the regular tap is warm. Nationally written history tells us about how world comes out and the regular tap is warm. Nationally written history tells us about how World War II affected the country, but it does not regularly tell us about local heroes that fought. This lesson focuses on two essentials: variety history, local and oral, and also provides you with a quick guide on how to conduct oral history interviews that could be valuable for conducting research. Every one of us has stories to tell. Not one story is more important than the other, and thus we must do our best to record our local and oral histories.
Local history. The history subjects and courses usually taught to students in schools are Philippine history, world history, and the history of Asia. The coverage is always expansive and taught in broad strokes of historical periods, of large spaces, and of prominent personalities. Little is known about the subdiscipline of local history. Local history is the study of the history of a particular community or a smaller unit of geography. Debates, however, continuously persist on the definition of this subdiscipline, particularly in the subject of its study. Thus, local history studies local communities, local institutions, local groups, local heroes. In recent studies, local history tends to cover all of these topics. Local historians study the history of local institutions like churches. They also consider the local economies, local heroes, and local events. Thus, local history is also a broad and dynamic field of inquiry that aims to have an in-depth understanding of a particular local. Oral history. The term oral history as attached to interviewing was first noted in the 1940s by Joseph Gould. When he went around Greenwich Village in New York to write an oral history of our time. He wanted to record what ordinary people had to say as the part of history. It was a shift from a monarchy or ruler-centered prior histories that used written and official sources. Later on, Alan Neves and Louis Stark cemented oral history as a subfield of historiography. By the 1960s, it started to spread around the world, leading to the 1987 International Oral History Association. Oral history is essential amid a scarcity in written sources, historical documents, and other material evidence. This method uses oral accounts of historical subjects, witnesses, members of the communities, and the like. Oral history primarily relies on memory. The informant will recount their experiences to the researcher as they remember it. In other instances, the informant will relay what they learned from their ancestors or older members of the community to the historian. This nature and definition of oral history cause positivist historians or those who subscribe to the belief that history should be primarily based on written documents to criticize the methods of oral history. Memory is seen as something faulty and inaccurate. British historian A.G.P. Taylor even dismissed oral history as old men drooling about their youth. At best, positivist historians see oral accounts as a mere supplement to the history written from written documents.
Interviewing as a method. Interviewing as a method. This topic discusses how to conduct effective historical interviews. It emphasizes the importance of preparation, including researching both the topic and the interviewee's background. It also advises preparing interview questions in advance and having a chronological outline of relevance if applicable. Finally, it stresses the necessity of using proper equipment like smartphones with voice recorders and obtaining consent and release forms before conducting and publishing the interview. These forms ensure ethical and legal compliance, acknowledging the interviewee retains ownership of their story. History through paintings and films. History through paintings and films refers to the interpretation and representation of historical events, periods, and cultural narratives through visual art form. Both mediums serves as window into the past, providing unique insights into how individuals and societies understood, documented, and remembered their experiences. History through paintings. Visual record. Paintings often depict significant historical events, everyday life, or cultural practices serving as record of the artist's time. Symbolism and perspective. Artists use symbolism, style, and composition to express ideological, political, or emotional aspect of history. Cultural reflection. Painting reflects societal values, beliefs, and power dynamics, offering a glimpse into historical context of the era. Example, Francisco Goya's The 3rd of May, 1808, captures the brutality of war, and the morals of Diego Rivera documented the Mexican Revolution. History through films. Reenactment of events. Films recreate historical events, making them accessible and engaging for contemporary audience. Narrative and emotion. Movies bring history to life by blending factual accounts with storytelling and human emotion, offering immersive experiences. Cultural and political commentary. Films often critique or interpret history through modern lenses, highlighting them like justice, oppression, or resistance. Both paintings and films contribute to understanding history by engaging viewers emotionally and intellectually, complementing traditional textual sources and preserving historical memory.
Painting Philippines History and Analyzing Art, Juan Luna and Fernando Amorsolo. Two iconic Filipino painters captured the historical, cultural, and emotional realities of their times through their art. Luna, a revolutionary and political activist, created masterpieces like Spolarium and Pacto de Sangre, which symbolizes the Philippine struggle under Spanish rule. His works often reflected political message and aligned with the propaganda movement for reform. Amorsolo, known for his romanticized depiction of rural life and pioneering use of light, created paintings that idealized Filipino culture and landscapes, catering to American colonial taste. His historical work sometimes perpetuated myths due to limited historical sources, but his World War II era paintings like Maid of Bataan conveyed the suffering and resilience of Filipino during the war. Both artists' works serve as visual primary sources, blending artistry with historical and cultural narratives, offering invaluable insights to the Philippine past. Filming Philippine history and reading historical film. History and films share a symbiotic relationship, with filmmakers drawing inspiration from historical events and using them as material for engaging storytelling. In the Philippines, historical films like La Vida de Jose Rizal, 1912, demonstrated how history could captivate public interest, but such films often face challenges in balancing historical accuracy with artistic and commercial considerations. Historical films prioritize sensory engagement and entertainment, frequently fictionalizing events for dramatic effect and condensing complex narrative into limited runtimes. Scholars like Robert A. Rosenstone and Hayden White argue that historical films, as visual representation of the past, are legitimate form of historical knowledge, though they must be critically analyzed like traditional historical narratives. Analyzing historical films involves various methods, including textual, examining elements like acting and cinematography; contextual, situating the film without historical and artistic background; intertextual, connecting the film to related works; and subtextual, identifying underlying message. Historical films can be categorized into two types. Those based on documentable events or figures. Example, General Luna and Goyo. And those using historical settings with fictional characters. Example, Oro, Plata, Mata, Dekada 70. These films demonstrate the potential of historical cinema as tool for understanding the past while acknowledging their artistic limitation. They blend historical fact with creative interpretation, offering both educational and emotional insights while necessitating critical analysis to discern historical truths.
I'm gonna discuss lesson
24 about the historical sites, structures, and museums. This lesson highlights the importance of tangible cultural heritage in understanding Philippine history. It emphasizes that history is not confined to textbook but exists in everyday surroundings, such as old churches, buildings, artifacts, and historical sites. Heritage connects history, memory, and identity, helping Filipinos to learn about their past, memorialize events, and shape their identity. The National Historical Commission of Philippines, or NHCP, plays a vital role in preserving historical sites, markers, and museums. Local governments and private institutions also contributed by promoting history through public spaces and events for those unable to visit physical sites. Digital tools offer virtual tours and exhibits an alternative means of exploring history. The lesson encourages us to engage with these spaces to recognize that history is alive, enduring, and a shared experience that connects us to our roots and identity. Historical sites and structures. This text emphasizes the importance of historical sites and structures in understanding Philippine history. The National Historical Commission of the Philippines, or NHCP, identifies and preserves these sites, marked with the cast iron plaques based on a criteria such as their association with significant events, heroes, cultural influences, and historical authenticity. Sites must generally be over 50 years old and at least 70% authentic. Historical sites are categorized into two recognition levels. Level 1, Heritage Zone, cultural treasures, shrines, monuments, and landmarks. And Level 2, less prominent but still significant sites. Examples of shrines include the Rizal Shrines, and Andres Bonifacio Shrine, and Mount Samat National Shrine. However, challenges exist, such as outdated or controversial markers and regional imbalances in marker distribution, with Luzon having a higher concentration. Visiting these sites provides a unique and immersive learning experience, allowing Filipino to connect with history in an intangible way. Such experience enhances retention, offers recreational value, and fostering a deeper appreciation of a nation's heritage by enabling individuals to live history beyond textbook.
Museum. In the previous section, we discussed historical sites and structures, and while some of these sites have museum integrated. Museums are informal learning space as opposed to formal areas such as school and classroom. These are places where learners can engage with exhibits and activities that enhance their knowledge and appreciation of the past. Museums are designed for learning. Artworks, objects, and historical materials are presented to viewers to enable education and appreciation. The country, region, city, or town, cultural and natural heritage are treated as museum objects that contribute to our understanding of the work of individuals and societies. It provides visitors a sensory exploration of these museum objects together with museum text that explains the value of such objects and why we need to interact with it. Museums provide free choice in what the visitor wants to learn through a spontaneous process where ideas, concepts, and information are openly communicated. Museums are essential supplement to school education, which is the reason why at some point in our student life we have visited a museum. In the Philippines, there are many museums that students can visit depending on their location. In Metro Manila, the National Museum of the Philippines is a museum complex that consists of several museums. There are numerous other museums in Metro Manila, such as the Asia Museum, a private museum with a rich collection of dioramas about Philippine history, ceramics and porcelain collections, and largest collection of archaeological gold in the country. Universities also host museums that are worth a visit, such as University of Santo Tomas, Museum of Arts and Science, the oldest existing in the Philippines. The University of the Philippines also has the George B. Vargas. There are also local community museums managed by local governments in the Philippines, which house collections of local importance and features local history. Example of this is Pasig City Museum, the Cagayan Provincial Museum, and the Guigaria City Museum in Batangas and Pila Museum in Laguna. As a student visiting a museum, how do you make the most of your trip? First, be mindful of your instruction on what the visit is for and what you should be looking for when you get there. Usually, there are worksheets to fill out should be looking for when you get there. Usually, there are paper to write. Take note of this so you know what to do when you get the museum.